Imagine taking a simple walk with your loyal dog, the sun shining, children laughing, waves crashing nearby. But in a split second, cruelty and hate turn joy into heartbreak. They killed her dog because she's black, but what happened just moments later will leave you speechless. Before we dive in, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe right now so you don't miss tomorrow's powerful story. Dawn rolled into Harbor Point with a slow gold light, sailing over rooflines, touching the water like a promise. Ayanna walked the marina boardwalk with Luna, her ebony-coated shepherd mix trotting half a step ahead, ears high, nose twitching. The town was waking. Bait shop doors clattered, gulls argued, a jogger waved. Luna leaned into Ayanna's knee, as if to say, "We own this morning." Ayanna smiled, tugged her cap lower, and kept a relaxed pace past shuttered cafes with chalkboards waiting for fresh menus. She loved this hour, because no one performed. Engines coughed, fishermen cursed softly, and even the old lighthouse crusted with salt seemed to breathe. Luna paused at the edge of Pier C and watched a school of baitfish flicker just below the surface. Scouts report. Ayanna teased. Luna woofed once, proud, tail brushing Ayanna's leg. A couple taking selfies said hello. Ayanna returned it, easy and warm, the way she had learned to be in places that sometimes asked her to shrink. By mid-morning, the boardwalk swelled. Sun umbrellas bloomed. A brass band rehearsed on the green for the weekend festival. Vendors rolled out coolers. Luna carried herself like a diplomat, accepting pets from careful children and side-eye from a bulldog who clearly objected to sharing the path. Ayanna's phone buzzed. 2 missed calls, 3 emails, a calendar alert blinking briefing moved to Monday. She muted everything and slipped the device away. "One day off," she told Luna. "Just us." The first catcall floated over the hum, thin, stretched, tossed like bait. "Nice dog, sweetheart." Luna's ear flicked. Ayanna didn't break stride. The second voice came harder, closer, rattling with the small courage people borrow from crowds. "You sure she's allowed here?" Ayanna glanced left. 3 men leaned on a faded pickup backed up to the curb, sunburned forearms, tattoos crawling up elbows. One had a baseball cap pulled low, another toyed with a chain. The third sipped from a paper cup and smiled without warmth. "She's leashed and licensed," Ayanna said, steady. "Have a good day." Luna's tail lowered a notch, reading the charge in the air. "Relax," the chain twirler said. "Just asking questions." His gaze slid over Ayanna like grease. "You local?" "Walking my dog," she replied. "That's all." She guided Luna toward the waterfront park where families picnicked and a sax player worked through scales under a fig tree. They didn't follow yet. The rest of the circuit was uneventful. Ayanna bought iced tea from an auntie who had known her since college, tipped too much, and let Luna flop in the grass. Children climbed the whale statue. Kites tugged their strings. For a little while, the sour taste of the pickup faded. Afternoon heat rose. Ayanna headed back along the side street behind the bakery, quieter than the boardwalk, shaded by sycamores. She heard the truck before she saw it, a lazy growl, then a rev like a dare. It eased alongside, matching her pace, white walls whispering on pavement. The chain twirler leaned out the window. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, voice candy sweet, eyes flat. "What's her name?" Ayanna kept to the sidewalk. "Have a good day," she repeated. Luna shifted between her and the truck, shoulder firm against Ayanna's thigh. The driver laughed. "Man, relax. It's a dog. We like dogs." He made a kissing sound at Luna, then spat toward the curb. The glob missed Luna's paw by inches. Ayanna breathed once, slow, and scanned for people. An older couple loading groceries, a teen on a scooter, a postal worker halfway down the block. Witnesses. Good. The truck rolled ahead, stopped, blocked the crosswalk. The men climbed out as if stepping onto a stage. "You know," Caplow said, "some places don't like certain types around here." Ayanna's jaw set. "I'm on a public sidewalk. Move your truck." Chain twirler clicked his links like castanets. "You bossing me now?" Luna's growl was low, a warning note she rarely used. "Easy," Ayanna murmured to her. "We're leaving." She angled around the bumper. Driver stepped left to cut her off. The one with the chain smirked, then flicked his wrist. Luna barked, quick, bright, not a challenge, more like back off. It happened fast, the way bad choices do. A flash of motion, a hiss of breath, something metal lifting under the driver's jacket, a short baton, the cheap retractable kind sold at flea markets. He swung downward without thinking, without caring, a lazy, mean arc aimed at the sound rather than the situation. The baton clipped Luna's shoulder with a blunt crack. Luna yelped, stumbled, tried to regain footing, collapsed to the warm concrete, legs scrabbling for purchase that wasn't there. Everything narrowed. The truck, the baton. Luna's eyes, brown and shocked, fixing on Ayana like, what did I do wrong? Ayana dropped to her knees. Luna, hey baby, look at me. She slid a hand under Luna's neck, the other over the shoulder, feeling for anything broken, finding a tremor that didn't stop. The world around them slowed into a tunnel. Heat throbbed in her ears. The chain twirler laughed, high and ugly. Should have kept her quiet. Caplow looked around, suddenly aware of the grocery couple, the postal worker, the teen on the scooter, phones rising like periscopes. We should bounce, he muttered. The driver sneered. It's a mutt. Ayana looked up and something in her eyes made them all step back. You hit my dog, she said. Each word arrived with the precision of a hammer. You assaulted us. Call the pound, chain twirler said, but his voice was thinner now. 911, the postal worker called, already dialing. Assault on a pet, possible cruelty. A small crowd coalesced, tourists, locals, a pair of cooks in aprons smelling of garlic and heat. The teen on the scooter filmed without blinking. Luna tried to stand, her legs folded. Ayana slid her jacket under the dog's head, stroked between the ears, whispered nonsense, prayed without words. She assessed with the speed of someone who knows triage, pupils responsive, breathing shallow, a shiver rippling under the skin. Stay with me, she said softly. You're okay. I've got you. Good girl. Sirens wailed faintly. The driver kicked the bumper, suddenly anxious. Let's go, Caplow urged. The chain twirler flicked the baton closed and started backing toward the passenger door. Didn't touch her, he said, for the record he hoped would exist later. The teen zoomed in on his face. A black SUV squealed to the curb. A woman in scrubs jumped out carrying a pet trauma kit. Harbor Point had a mobile vet who loved weekends by the water. What happened, she demanded, already kneeling beside Ayana. She worked fast, stethoscope, light, gentle hands pressing along the spine. Shock, she said. We need to get her to the clinic, now. Ayana nodded, eyes never leaving Luna. I'm with you. The vet glanced up at the men clustered by the truck. Which one, she asked, voice edged. Silence answered. Phone stayed pointed. The driver jutted his chin. Nobody touched nothing. Plenty of eyes say otherwise, the postal worker snapped. Patrol cars swung in from both ends of the street, boxing the truck. Doors popped. Officers approached, not rushing, not lazy either, careful in the way people are when they sense a scene is already writing itself without them. The chain twirler's grin melted. The driver's jaw worked. Caplow tucked his hands into empty pockets like flags of surrender. Step away from the vehicle, an officer ordered. Hands where I can see them. The men obeyed, stiff mouths running with excuses that sounded smaller in daylight. The vet spooled an IV line with practiced grace. I need a lane, she said. The crowd parted. She nodded to Ayana. Ready to lift? Together they raised Luna onto a folded blanket. Luna's breath hitched, her paw pawed weakly at Ayana's wrist, reclaiming contact. Good girl, Ayana murmured, voice breaking for the first time. Across the hood of the pickup, an officer patted down the driver and found the baton. His brows lifted. This yours? The driver looked at the concrete. Found it. Sure you did, the postal worker muttered. Another cruiser rolled up. A sergeant stepped out, older, eyes tired, and scanned the tableau. A wounded dog, a shaken woman, 3 men trying to shrink inside their skin, a knot of witnesses with cameras held like shields. He took in the baton, the IV bag, the faces. You could feel the decision forming behind his gaze. Ayana kissed Luna's forehead and stood, slow, centered. The vet nodded. We'll go, she said, lifting the blanket corner. You ride with us. I will, Ayana answered. She turned, finally, fully to the 3 men by the truck. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Look at her, she said. Look at what you did, because you thought no one would hold you to account. They looked, then looked away. The sergeant's radio crackled, distant chatter threading through sun glare and gasoline reek. He held up a hand to his officers, either to slow them or steady himself. Then from the boardwalk side, boots thudded on wood, a door flew open, and the air inside the moment shifted, everything tightening as if the town itself inhaled and forgot how to exhale. A figure stepped into the street's light, shadow cutting clean across asphalt, presence heavy enough to make the nearest officer straighten a fraction taller even before he saw the face. Conversations clipped off mid-word, phones tilted to keep that doorway inside their frames. The driver squinted, blinked hard, swallowed. Ayana placed her palm on Luna's shoulder one last time before the lift and felt the tremor ease beneath her skin. The siren's tone shortened. The crowd drifted a step aside from whatever came next. Harbor Point held still. Ready, the vet said. Ayanna nodded, eyes on the figure who had just arrived, and everything around her, grief, anger, purpose, drew into a single line. The doorway framed a man in a slate blazer, no tie, trimmed beard, mirrored aviators catching the sun. He moved with quiet economy, like someone who counted exits without looking. The nearest officer straightened on reflex. The sergeant's jaw shifted as recognition clicked into place. Ayanna, the man said evenly, voice carrying without strain. She didn't look away from Luna. Marcus, the name threaded through the crowd, friend to some, rumor to others. He stepped closer, scanning the tableau in a single sweep, the IV dripping into a taped paw, the baton bagged as evidence, the three men arrayed by the pickup, and Ayanna kneeling on hot concrete with grit on her palms. Status, Marcus asked the vet. Shock, the vet said, calm but clipped. Possible internal bruising. Stable vitals for now. We need to transport. Marcus nodded once. He turned to Ayanna. Ride with them. I'll handle the street. Ayanna searched his eyes, the mirrored lenses giving her only her own reflection. And then she nodded. Don't let them slip, she said softly. They won't, he answered. The sergeant approached, measuring his words. Mr. Reed, this is an active scene. Marcus slid the sunglasses into his pocket, revealing eyes so steady they slowed the noise around them. Then I'm here as a civilian witness, like everyone else, he said. And as the victim's emergency contact. He gestured at Ayanna. She called me. Ayanna hadn't touched her phone, but the sergeant didn't challenge it. He pivoted to the officers. Secure the vehicle. Separate the three for statements. He glanced at the crowd. Folks, keep filming, but give the med team a lane. The vet and her assistant lifted the blanket. Luna whimpered, then steadied. Ayanna supported the hindquarters, walking in step to the open hatch of the SUV. We'll be 5 minutes to the clinic, the vet said, sliding Luna inside. You two, she pointed to her assistant and Ayanna, in the back. Hold steady pressure here. Ayanna climbed in, one hand braced on the crate, the other on Luna's chest, feeling the soft rise and fall. The door slammed. Siren hit a restrained wail. The vehicle leapt into traffic. Through the rear glass she saw Marcus pivot toward the pickup, like a compass needle finding north. On the street, the air trimmed itself to essentials. The sergeant read off rights. Chains clinked into a bag. The crowd murmured in a low electric chord. Marcus moved to the grocery couple. Did you see the strike? He asked. We did, the woman said, voice furious. He swung like he was swatting a fly. Her husband nodded, face pale. Dog barked one time. That was it. Phones came forward. Got it from here, the teen on the scooter said, thumbing to the clip. Clean angle. Marcus took down names and numbers, each in a neat column on a small notebook he produced from a pocket, asking precise questions that never sounded like drills. Time, distance, what hand held the baton, any words before the hit. He did not say why he cared. He didn't need to. The driver glared over a shoulder toward Marcus. Who's this guy? Someone who listens, the postal worker said. Kites snapped in the breeze over the green. A brass note from the band drifted on the heat, wildly out of place. The sergeant stepped to Marcus. You know the victim, he said. Not a question. Years, Marcus answered. She's steady. This wasn't provoked. The sergeant studied him a beat. Your business here is what precisely? Truth, Marcus said, as if the word were job enough. You'll get it faster with the right order of steps. He pointed, not with a hand but with intent. Scene photos before the truck moves. Measure distances. Confirm the baton's prints. Collect the spittle by the curb. DNA if the lab runs it. Catalog the men's shoes in case anyone claims they didn't step close. The sergeant's mouth twitched, half oblique humor, half grudging respect. You run my squad now. Just making sure nothing gets lost, Marcus said, tone flat. You know what happens when it does. The chain twirler couldn't stop himself. Listen to this clown, he snorted. Thinks he's in a movie. Marcus didn't look at him. Name? The chain twirler jutted his chin. Why? So we don't have to call you chain twirler in statements, Marcus said, pen poised. Evan, he muttered. Last name? Why should I? The sergeant lifted one brow. Say your name. Evan sighed. Keegan. The driver scowled. Don't say anything else. Driver, Marcus said, eyes sliding once. You'll want to talk carefully about the object used because those telescoping batons are restricted in many jurisdictions when used offensively. The driver swallowed. Found it, he said again, weaker. Marcus scribbled, then turned to the Cap-Low man. You, he hesitated. Miles. Last. Beckett. Marcus wrote it down without comment, then pivoted back to the witnesses like a metronome. He collected 3 more videos, 2 photographs, and a note from a cafe cook who recognized the pickup from previous ugly afternoons near the alley. The sergeant's officers canvassed politely, gloved hands bagging the cheap baton, taping off a small square of gum-spotted concrete around the damp spittle smear, measuring in chalk from bumper to crosswalk. At the clinic, the vet hung a second bag and checked a monitor. "She's holding," she said, peering down. "We'll do x-rays now. You can sit right there." She pointed to a folding chair inches from the table. Ayanna nodded, palms pressed against her knees to keep them from shaking. "You saved time," she said. "We were close," the vet replied. "Lucky." She met Ayanna's eyes. "She's a fighter." Ayanna exhaled, a long frayed line unspooling from behind her ribs. "She is." Her phone buzzed from inside her pocket. She pulled it free. 4 messages, one from Marcus. "Street secured. Witnesses solid. I'll be here when you're ready." Another from a blocked number she knew by cadence alone. "Heard. Want resources." She typed a simple, "Stand by." In the waiting room, 2 children flipped through a dog breed book, whispering over pictures as if conjuring luck. A man in a delivery shirt snored into his elbow. A television on mute scrolled subtitles about a heat wave. Ayanna clasped her hands, saw grit lodged under a nail, and forced herself not to scrub until Luna was out of imaging. She stared at the closed door, replaying the narrow yaw of the baton, the tiny change in Luna's eyes. Back at the scene, the brass band struck up a march that sounded like a parody of Order. Marcus pocketed his notebook and approached the sergeant again. "Transport them separate," he advised. "They'll coach each other if you don't." "Already called for 2 cars," the sergeant said. "You talk like my training officer." "I listen like one," Marcus said. "And I pay attention when the town's watching." A woman stepped forward with a stroller. "Are they going to jail?" she asked. The sergeant measured the crowd and answered like a man who knew a wrong word would breed a new problem. "They're being detained and questioned," he said. "We'll confer with the district attorney." Marcus added, "Charges include animal cruelty and assaultive conduct, plus any enhancement the DA deems appropriate." Evan rolled his eyes. "For a dog," he sneered. A silence fell heavy enough to bend the air. The postal worker spoke into it, voice flinty. "For what you are," he said, "and what you did because of it." Evan looked away first. An officer came jogging from the truck. "Sarge," she called, "there's dried reddish on the passenger side step. Might be previous, might be today." "Photograph, swab," the sergeant said. He nodded toward Marcus. "You stepping in as counsel?" "Not today," Marcus said, "just making sure the record breathes." A low horn sounded. A county van pulled to the curb, DA investigator plates flashing. A woman in a charcoal suit stepped out, sunglasses perched, hair braided neat. She clocked the situation in 3 glances, then pointed at the baton bag. "Chain of custody." An officer gestured. She nodded, satisfied. Her eyes found Marcus. "Read," she said, the syllable cool. "Stone," he returned as neutral. "Victim at vet?" she asked. "Stable," he said. "The clinic will share records." Stone turned to the sergeant. "We'll take statements downtown. Keep the witnesses warm. No unnecessary commentary." The sergeant tipped his chin. "Understood." At the clinic, the door swung open. The vet peeled off gloves. "Good news first," she said. "No fractures. Deep tissue bruising, some swelling, mild concussion equivalent. Pain management and observation. She'll limp, she'll hurt, but she'll heal." Ayanna didn't realize she'd been holding her breath until her vision sparked at the edges. She nodded, throat thick. "Can I?" "Go," the vet said, carving a smile. "She'll want your voice." Ayanna stepped into the small treatment room. Luna lifted her head, eyes cloudy but tracking, tail giving one brief brave thump. "Hey, soldier," Ayanna whispered, leaning close. "You scared me." She stroked between Luna's eyes, felt the warm forehead press into her wrist. Relief hurt as much as terror had. "We're not done," she murmured, "but you're here." Her phone buzzed again. "Marcus, DA on scene. They're moving them. Come when you can." She typed back, 10 minutes. She kissed the patch of fur above Luna's nose, stood, washed grit from her hands at the tiny sink until the water ran clear, then stepped into the waiting room and out into the white noon sun. On the street, music stopped. A gull screamed. The pickup sat like a bad idea that had started talking. Stone conferred with the sergeant. Marcus watched the 3 men being loaded into separate cars, faces pale under bravado. The grocery couple waved him over with a worried look. "She okay?" the woman asked. "She'll mend," Marcus said. "Good," the man breathed. A shadow cooled the sidewalk for a beat as a cloud slid over the sun. Marcus looked up, reading the light like a map. Then he felt the temperature change that wasn't weather at all. Quiet footfalls, attention narrowing, the way a street inhales before someone says something that tilts the axis. He turned toward the boardwalk. Ayanna was walking back, hair slightly mussed from leaning over a table, eyes clear as glass, posture straightened by relief into something fiercer. The crowd recognized her and shifted, making a corridor. Phones came up again, softer now, not hunting blood but holding space. Marcus stepped to meet her halfway. "She's going to be fine," he said, like a report. Ayanna nodded once. "Did they talk?" "Not yet," he said, "but they will." Her gaze moved past him to the men in cuffs. Something in the set of her jaw told the sergeant everything he needed to know about whether this story would sink or make waves. Stone watched too, expression unreadable. Ayanna stopped at the chalk line by the bumper. She stood there, breathing even, and the street quieted the way it had when the baton lifted, a hush that knew something significant was about to land. "Ma'am," Stone said carefully, stepping forward. "When you're ready, we'll take your statement." Ayanna looked at the pickups, the officers, the faces, the tiny square of taped concrete where spit had dried in the sun, and finally back at Stone. "I'm ready," she said. Her voice was calm, exact, unbroken. "Start your recorder." The recorder clicked on with a flat chirp. Stone balanced it on the hood of a patrol car, her tone brisk. "State your name for the record." "Ayanna Reed," she said. "Location, Harbor Point, near Pier C, on Sycamore Avenue." Stone adjusted her sunglasses. "Describe in your own words what happened." Ayanna's eyes swept the taped-off square of sidewalk where Luna had collapsed. "I was walking my dog along the boardwalk. 3 men in a white pickup began harassing me, asking questions, making remarks. I tried to ignore them. Later on Sycamore, they blocked my path. One of them produced a baton and struck my dog. She collapsed. I rendered aid until a mobile vet arrived." The words came crisp, surgical. Her tone carried no waver, though Marcus, standing a step behind her, noted the faint tightening of her jaw. "Did you or your dog provoke them?" Stone asked. "No," Ayanna said. "She barked once when they closed in, as any animal would. That was all." Stone's pen moved across her legal pad. "Can you identify the man who swung?" Ayanna turned, scanning the line of detainees in separate cars. She pointed without hesitation. "The driver." The baton was in his right hand. Phones captured the gesture. The crowd hummed approval. Stone nodded. "You'll provide a written statement?" "Yes, thank you." She clicked the recorder off, slid it into her case, and turned to the sergeant. "You've got cruelty, aggravated assault, and bias indicators. Secure them. We'll arraign within 24. The sergeant inclined his head. "Understood." The crowd began to disperse, trickling back toward the festival, buzzing with conversation and disbelief. Some lingered, unwilling to leave the scene just yet. Ayanna exhaled. Marcus handed her a bottle of water, unopened. She twisted the cap, drank, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "I need to get back to the clinic," she said. "I'll drive," Marcus answered. They walked side by side to his sedan, unmarked, dusty from travel. Inside, the air smelled faintly of leather and cedar. Ayanna leaned back, eyes closing for a moment, then opening to watch the town roll past. Vendors hawked, music resumed, the normal rhythm of life already trying to cover what had just unfolded. "You gathered witness accounts," she said. "I did," Marcus replied. "Plenty of angles. Nobody can spin this clean." "They'll try," Ayanna said quietly. "Men like that don't think they're guilty. They think they're justified." Marcus gripped the wheel a fraction tighter. "Let them. Evidence is strong." At the clinic, Luna rested under light sedation. The vet nodded them in. "She's stable," she said. "We'll keep her overnight. Pain meds, fluids, rest. You can sit as long as you need." Ayanna sank into the chair beside the table. Luna's chest rose and fell, steady now, each breath a small mercy. Ayanna stroked her gently, lips moving in whispers only Luna could hear. Marcus leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You held your composure," he said softly. Ayanna shook her head. "I wanted to break his arm, but Luna needed calm. She always looks to me for that." "That calm will cut deeper than any swing," Marcus said. Evening shadows lengthened across the clinic windows. A nurse dimmed the lights. The world narrowed to the steady beep of a monitor and the rustle of pages as Ayanna signed forms. She stood finally, stretching stiff muscles. "I need to check something," she told Marcus. They stepped outside. The street lamps flickered on, casting orange pools across empty sidewalks. Harbor Point at night was quieter, the festival's buzz softened by distance. "Something's off," Ayanna murmured. Marcus tilted his head. "Explain." "They were bold, too bold. In daylight, with witnesses. That doesn't come from nowhere. It felt rehearsed." Marcus's brows knit. "A setup, or a dare," Ayanna said. "Either way, it wasn't random." He studied her a long moment. "You think they were testing you?" "I know it," she said. Behind them, the vet tapped on the glass, motioning. Luna had shifted, eyes open, tail twitching weakly. Ayanna hurried inside, crouched low, murmuring praise. Relief softened her face, but her spine remained taut, braced for something unseen. Later, as the clinic settled into quiet hums and distant barks, Marcus sat across from her, voice low. If it wasn't random, it means more eyes are on you than we thought. Ayana nodded, which means Luna wasn't just a target of cruelty. She was a message. Her words fell into the sterile air like stones into deep water, rippling out. Somewhere outside, Harbor Point's laughter carried faintly from the boardwalk, thin and brittle against what was coming. Night in Harbor Point hummed low, neon spilling over wet pavement, laughter from bars spooling into alleys. The festival lights twinkled across the water like broken glass. Ayana left the clinic just after 10, Luna resting under sedation, nurses promising hourly checks. Marcus waited outside beneath a street lamp, posture relaxed but gaze alert, scanning every passerby. "They'll come again," Ayana said, sliding into the passenger seat of his sedan. "I know," Marcus replied. He pulled into traffic, engine whispering, "which means we'll be ready." They drove past the boardwalk. The pickup was gone, impounded, but the chalk lines on the pavement still glowed faint under street lamps, a reminder carved into stone. Ayana leaned against the window. Those men weren't leaders, they were pawns. Someone else pushed them. Marcus nodded slowly. It felt too clean, too loud. "They wanted witnesses," she said. "They wanted the story to spread." The sedan rolled into her neighborhood. Quiet bungalows crouched under fig trees. Porch lights flickered. A stray cat darted across the road. Marcus eased to the curb. "You want me inside?" Ayana shook her head. "Not yet. I need the quiet." He studied her, then nodded. "I'll circle the block twice." She stepped into the night, air thick with honeysuckle and engine heat. Inside, her home felt smaller, walls leaning, silence pressing. She poured water, sat on the couch, and replayed the day like a reel. Luna's bark, the baton's arc, the laughter, the crowd, Marcus's steady eyes. Her hands clenched. She opened her laptop. Emails blinked, some routine, some flagged high priority. One subject line tightened her chest. "Not safe in Harbor Point." No sender listed, only anonymous. She clicked. The message was 4 words. "More dogs, than you." Her breath caught. She screenshotted, encrypted it, sent it to Marcus with a single note. "Now we know." The phone buzzed seconds later. "Marcus, lock doors. I'm outside." She moved through the house methodically. Latch, deadbolt, chain, curtains drawn, lights dimmed. She returned to the couch, muscles wound tight, listening to her own pulse. Her mind replayed Luna's whimper, the look in her eyes. Rage simmered beneath her ribs, cold and clean. She whispered aloud, as though promising Luna, "They think they know who I am. They don't." Outside, headlights swept past. Marcus parked at the end of the street, a silhouette behind the wheel. His presence steadied her, but the threat remained, coiled. At midnight, glass shattered. The sound came from 2 houses over. Ayana froze, listening, then heard it again, followed by a bark cut short. Her stomach turned to stone. She grabbed her phone, dialed Marcus. 2 doors down. "It's starting." "I heard," he said. "Stay put." Voices rose outside, low and jagged. Tires squealed. The night smelled of gasoline and fear. Ayana paced, fists tight. Her instincts screamed to move, to act, to shut it down before it spread. But she stayed, waiting, calculating. Every second burned, then silence. Too much silence. She strained her ears, nothing but the hum of power lines. The phone buzzed again. "Marcus." Truck fled. Checking. She sank to her knees, breath ragged, fury coursing. This wasn't random. It was escalation. It was personal. At dawn, she returned to the clinic. Luna lifted her head, eyes clearer, tail weakly brushing the blanket. Ayana stroked her, whispering steady praise, but even as relief filled her chest, her mind sharpened into something colder. "They won't stop," she told Luna softly. "Not until they're stopped." She stood, spine straight, eyes hard as steel. The line between victim and hunter blurred, erased by blood and threat, and somewhere in the distance, Harbor Point carried on, unaware of the storm already moving toward it. The clinic doors slid open at dawn, spilling pale light into the waiting room. Ayana stepped out with Luna at her side, bandaged but walking, tail wagging weakly. Relief rippled through her chest, but it sat on top of something harder, sharper. Marcus leaned against his sedan, coffee in hand, eyes never leaving the street. "She's strong," he said, nodding at Luna. Ayana crouched, rubbing Luna's ears. "She always has been." But they wanted more than a dog. Marcus straightened. "We've traced the pickup, registered to a shell. The 3 men were tools, nothing more. There's bigger behind them." Ayana's jaw set. "Then we go bigger." They drove through Harbor Point, the town still sleepy, unaware of the storm beneath. Past the boardwalk, past the chalk marks where Luna had fallen, until they reached the precinct. The sergeant waited out front, looking uneasy. "They've lawyered up," he said, claiming harassment, self-defense. "The DA will push, but politics will muddy it." Ayana's eyes narrowed. "They struck because of hate. That's not self-defense. That's calculated." Before the sergeant could reply, heavy doors opened behind him. A group of suited men entered, whispering urgently. The atmosphere shifted, phones buzzed, officers stiffened, and then the lobby parted, silence falling. Ayana stepped forward, Luna close by, Marcus at her flank. She reached into her jacket and drew out a leather wallet. She flipped it open, the gold badge catching the light like a flare. Gasps broke through the precinct. Cameras lifted. "My name is Ayana Reed," she said, her voice steady, carrying. "Director, Federal Bureau of Investigation." The sergeant's eyes widened. The men in suits froze. The entire precinct held its breath. "You thought you attacked a woman and her dog," Ayana continued, voice like steel. "But what you struck was justice itself. And now your nightmare begins." The three men in holding stared from behind glass, bravado draining from their faces. The crowd outside, already gathering from word of mouth, erupted into cheers and shouts. Phones streamed live, voices chanting her name. Marcus stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. "You held back long enough," he murmured. Ayana's gaze locked on the men who had laughed when Luna collapsed. "Playtime is over," she said. "Every shadow you crawl into, we will drag you out. Every mask you wear, we will tear it away. You chose cruelty. Now you'll face consequence." The badge gleamed brighter in the sun as she held it high. Reporters pressed forward, microphones reaching, questions firing, but her focus never wavered. This was no longer about a dog, it was about a message. They thought they chose their victim, but in truth, they had chosen their executioner. And Harbor Point would never forget the day they killed her dog because she's black. Seconds later, their worst nightmare walked in.